Hello everyone, welcome to the Peanut Gallery. I'm your host Jessa, and I'm fascinated by analyzing mood, personality, and general mental disorders with comic book and movie characters. You'll find all those strange thoughts shared right here. Note, I am not a licensed psychologist, nor am I trained. This is for entertainment purposes only, and to satisfy my hypomanic moods to talk. Again, I'm probably going to reiterate this throughout all the episodes. I am not a licensed nor trained psychologist. This is for entertainment purposes only, so I do hope you enjoy the episodes. Welcome to episode 4 of the Peanut Gallery. Today I'm going to analyze Newt Scamander from Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I know this is a little different than what I usually do because I started off with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but as I said before, I'll be analyzing characters from all sorts of movies and films, and possibly even comic books, and I'm probably going to add in some anime and manga characters, but for now we're going to start off with Newt Scamander. Now this was a request from Ofo, I hope I'm saying your name right. So now, he is from the Harry Potter cinematic universe. I am not sure if he was in the books. I didn't read the books. But it was an absolutely great movie. I really loved it. And, so going back, and I had to go back and rewatch the movie and do a little bit more research on Newt, and come to find out he's really interesting. We'll get into that, don't worry. So, Newt, I've come to realize that he's rather introverted, kind of like me, kind of like most of us who are very creative types. And in addition to that, his personality type seems to be the healer type of one of the 16 types called INFP, which is introverted, intuition, feeling, perception. And that's exactly my personality. I'm actually tested. I took a test, so I am also an INFP, and this is really, really cool because I can associate with him. Now, what makes this interesting is that INFPs want others around them to be happy, to make their life easier. And in the case of Newt, it's that he wants the magical beast to be comfortable, to be protected, and sometimes even people such as muggles or other wizards and witches as well. We see that with Tina and Jacob. Now, to describe the INFP personality type, it's INFP people make up about 4% of the population that's tested. Now, as I said before, I'm tested, and you can easily test yourself with a variety of tests that are strewn across the internet if you just Google around for it. Now, what makes this fascinating is that, like I said earlier again, that I can relate to Newt. INFPs are introverted, intuition, feeling, perception, and these are the 4 base types that define an INFP. So we're going to start off with introverted. We can see that Newt is introverted. He prefers the company of magical beasts, and he would probably spend every waking hour with them because they love him and he can communicate with them more easily than other wizards. Now, because he's introverted, it makes him a little socially awkward around people, and especially muggles who don't like wizards. Now, as we move on to intuition, he has a great intuition about people. Muggles, wizards, magical creatures, and we can see that he trusts Jacob, and that's why he forcefully enlists his help to get his creatures back. Mainly because Jacob let them out in the first place, and he feels that it's his responsibility to get them back in. But his intuition has never failed him in any way, and has only led him to good people, and even to reveal some evil people. He was even able to use a charm to reveal Grindelwald at the end of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So even that's pretty awesome. Now, feeling is, it's a little odd to explain. He's in tune with other people and creatures' feelings, and this helps him to understand them better. Now, what that is he can sense kind of a mood you're in before you know it yourself. And that goes into perception. Perception is what it is. He's aware of other people's and creatures' emotions. He's in tune to them. He can tell what they're feeling and what kind of mood they're in, as I said earlier, and even what emotion they're about to be feeling or about to feel, because he's more perceptive to them than they are to themselves. Almost like someone who's able to sense another's aura. So INFPs are, as I said before, 4% of the population. And they're the healer type. So what that basically entails is anyone he meets in his life, whether it's when he's in New York, or if he's in another country, or if he's in a magical land, or he's even around the magical creatures that he wants to keep safe and all this, he wants them to be happy. He wants them to have an easier life. He will break his back in order for them to have a better life. And I can relate to this. A lot of INFPs can relate to this. it's an innate feeling that you want to help other people, the people you care about, the people you come in contact with, that you learn to care about. You want to make their life easier. You want to make them happy. You want to make them comfortable. And if that means sacrificing your own comfort for them, then you'll do it, because it's just it's a feeling you have to do it. It's not a choice. I mean, if you care about somebody, it's a choice to want to make them happier. And I know a lot of people will say that, oh, I do that anyway, and I'm just naturally me. And that's not naturally you. What it is you can be a selfless person, which means you'll bend over backwards for everyone else around you. But INFPs in particular only do that for the people they deeply care about. If you're an acquaintance, they won't do anything for you. INFPs will just brush you off. An INFP who deeply cares for somebody, who holds someone in a very special place in their heart, will bend over backwards, sacrificing their own comfort, their own happiness, in order to make that other person have a better life, a better mood, be happy, be comfortable. That's what it is to be an INFP healer. It's that they are more in tune to other people, they are a little more perceptive than other people. And that's what makes Newt Scamander interesting. Now, as I said before many times, that it's only 4% of the population that's tested. And out of the 16 types, it's kind of the most... Other than INFJs, which are 1%, we're not going to get into them. If I find somebody who's one of them, I'll let you know, because those are much more different people. So, out of the 4% of the population, we're going to go ahead and include wizards in this category too, because we are talking about the Harry Potter universe. So, Newt Scamander, I'm 100% sure he's an INFP. Just from what we've seen in the movie, is that he cares about Jacob, he cares about Tina, he cares about her sister Queenie, he cares about the magical creatures in his care. And that is the significant attribute of an INFP, is that you can see these things, that you care about these things, whether it's a muggle, a wizard, a creature, you care about them. So for Newt to be an INFP is really fun for me, because as I said before, I'm a tested INFP, so I can immediately tell that he's one of us, and that makes it even much more interesting, because you can actually see throughout the movie that he cares about Tina, and he cares about Jacob, he cares what happens to Queenie, and you can tell that he's really upset when Jacob decides to go out into the rain to forget everything that ever happened. And you can tell that he's quite upset about that, because by the end of the movie, he considers Jacob a close friend. And he makes up for that by handing him that briefcase at the very end to start his bakery. So you can tell that's exactly what an INFP would do. It's an exact thing to make him happy, to feel good about himself that he helped a close friend. Now, being an INFP that's not just Newt. That's just a bit. That's the majority of them. That actually pretty much explains his personality. But we're going to go on and talk about how he's introverted. Not all INFPs are introverted. What it is you can be an extroverted INFP, which means when an INFP gets in their element, like as when he introduced Jacob to all the magical creatures in his never-ending suitcase, you become extroverted. The INFPs become extroverted, and they love to talk about what they know about, what they love about. So when he brings Jacob into his little house with all the magical creatures, you can start to see that he wants Jacob to be part of this. He wants him to believe in magic. He wants him to be able to handle these magical creatures. So that's a distinct trait of an INFP. Now, before he meets Jacob, you can tell that he doesn't really like other people. He's very, very introverted. He prefers to be by himself with his magic suitcase, with his creatures that he's rehabilitating, mainly Frank the Thunderbird. But as I said earlier, by the end of the film, you can see that he's let go of some of that introvertedness by allowing Tina to get close to him, her sister Queenie, and Jacob. And because he freed Frank in order to help Macusa, or Macusa, I don't remember how that's pronounced in the movie, to wipe the memories of the Muggles. Now, typically introverted people don't like to go out and do things. It's out of their comfort zone. But he doesn't have a choice, because Jacob opened up the suitcase, allowing some creatures to escape, so he's forced to break out of his shell and do something out of the norm for him. Even going as far as enlisting Jacob's help to get those creatures back, and then finding the host of the Obscurus. His introverted visit to New York becomes an extroverted adventure where he meets a good muggle friend and 2 witches. Now the Obscurus is, that's gonna lead us to the next part that I think Newt is, that I can actually believe Newt is. Now the Obscurus and the Obscurio, we can tell that he was rather upset when it first came across in his suitcase, and you can tell that it hurt him deeply because he was able to actually capture it in a magic bubble. And if we were talking about his abilities as a wizard, he has some fascinating abilities, but we're not analyzing that, we're analyzing who he is. So that leads us to him being an empath. Now, I firmly believe that Newt is an empath. You don't need to be a wizard to be an empath. You can be a muggle or whatever they're called in the stateside, which is what no mage is. I'm gonna stick with muggle. It's easier to say. He has the ability to feel other people's pain, not in a wizardry way, but on an emotional level, and even with the creatures that he spends time with. He can tell when one of them isn't feeling well, if they're frightened, if they're angry, etc. This makes him an ideal Magizoologist because he can understand animals with little to no trouble. People seem to take him a little more time, whether they're a muggle or a wizard, and I can understand that people are more complicated than animals. The fact that he can soothe people and animals shows that he is an empath, at least in my opinion, and that's what makes him such a good character, because every one of us who love and adore animals can relate to Newt because he loves and adores all the magical beasts. It's why he was traveling around working on that book of his. I particularly notice that he's an empath when he manages to encase an Obscurus in a magic bubble. He couldn't save the host, a small girl who was about 8 years old, I believe. So he captured the Obscurus instead, and I think he keeps it as a reminder to let magic flourish rather than suppress it because of the dangers of it. It's why he's so determined to find out who the Obscurial is, and he's limited to children under 10 because that's the lifespan of them. But Credence proved them wrong because of his strong magical abilities. Being an empath can be difficult, and it definitely shows with Newt, especially when he was calming down Credence before they were interrupted by Mac USA, and he was forced to be obliterated, literally faded away into nothingness. And you can tell that hurt Newt really, really badly because he tried to save Credence because I think he felt he couldn't save that little girl. But he wanted to save Credence. He wanted to show Credence that magic is a beautiful thing, and if he had been able to save him and train him in his magic, then he wouldn't have been an Obscurus. He wouldn't have turned into an Obscurus. He wouldn't have been an Obscurio. He would have actually been probably a very powerful wizard. But because he was interrupted, because Mac USA interfered, he was unable to do that, and as an empath for Newt, that hurt him deeply, because not only did he fail that little girl, he failed Credence too. The difference is he couldn't contain his Obscurus as he did with the small girl, and that hurts an empath deeply, because empaths, as I said before, are in tune with other people's emotions. They can feel them before the other person knows and kind of make them a little bit better, make them happy if they're sad, cheer them up if they're a little upset, and generally make them feel good about themselves. It's not the same as sympathy. And empathy is where you can relate to another person. Sympathy is a bit different. But he's... Being an INFP innately makes you more perceptive of other people's feelings, but when you're an empath as well, it kind of makes it double-fold. And it even in the end of the movie, I felt the sorrow that Newt felt when he couldn't save Credence. And maybe that's just me being sentimental or overly emotional, but that's what I felt. And it hurt Newt very deeply because, as I said before, he couldn't save that child and he couldn't save this one either. And that really, really cuts deep when you lose 2 of them. So we're gonna leave the empathy behind at the moment before I start crying and thinking about this. We're gonna move on to any type of disorders that I've been able to find. As far as mood disorders go, I didn't really catch any. He didn't seem, other than being introverted and an empath, he didn't seem to have any kind of moods. He didn't seem inherently moody, and other than the fact that he was, again, highly upset over Credence, I didn't detect anything. I also didn't see any symptoms that could be related to any particular personality disorder either. He's a very likable person. He loves animals, both regular and magical, and he even loves muggles and witches, although he does have a disdain for the way things are done in MacUSA or MACUSA. For all intents and purposes, Newt's the average person, neither up with hypomanic-related disorders nor down with any depressive-related disorders. He's definitely not narcissistic either. He's very humble. He tries to stay out of the limelight unless an extenuating circumstance pulls him into it, like what happened when Jacob opened his suitcase, or joining the foray to find the Obscurio. We only have one film of Newt, and it's not much to go on, but I think he's a good guy. He's very in control of emotions, and he moves forward with his life once he's been able to surpass any obstacle thrown in his way. Even when he's able to get over the grief of what happened with Credence, he's still able to move forward, and he still takes a grieving period for that before moving forward. And as far as that goes, Newt, like I said, he's the average wizard. He doesn't have any significant ups and downs. He doesn't have any personality disorders. He's not narcissistic, and yeah, he's pretty much the average guy. But again, there's not much to go on because I don't think he makes any appearances in the books. I'm unsure about this. But honestly, I think he needs another movie. I mean, all the creatures they showed were beautiful, especially Frank the Thunderbird. He was an amazing creature. So it's as if to analyze one film is not enough, but you know what? I think Newt needs another film. And again, Newt is an INFP that in and of itself can bring issues around you because you're an introverted person. And being an empath can also do the same thing because you're aware of other people's feelings, especially if you're very close to them. I don't really have much else to say here except that I want another Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. I would love to see more of Newt Scamander and the magical creatures that he will encounter. And as I said before, I don't read the Harry Potter books, so I don't know if there's any mention of him there, but it was a fun adventure along with him. And as I said before, Frank was an absolutely beautiful Thunderbird. And Newt treated him as a very close friend rather than a pet, as he treats all the creatures in his suitcase as very close friends. Maybe even so far as to go as family, he treats them as family. And Frank cared for Newt in the same way as we see when he warned him of impending danger. So not only does Newt care for the creatures care for him in return. Even like I said, so far as for Frank to warn him that trouble was coming. So even then, that's absolutely amazing. So I guess the introverted, helpful empath Magizoologis needs to have more screen time. I would love to see more of his adventures. It will give him a chance to grow as a character, and maybe we can see where it leads him in life. He has a huge heart for creatures and for people, whether they're wizards or muggles or witches or squibs, and a need to help them when they're in trouble. I don't want to say he's the quintessential hero and that's someone you can but he is someone that you can rely on and be there for you if you need him to be. So it's again, there's not much to go on, and it really makes me upset that I only have this one movie to go on. I really love analyzing characters, as I said before, and I really want another movie. I want a part 2 to this movie. I want to see more of Newt Scamander, because again, he's a fascinating character. He's making this book, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, because he's going around. He's like a cartographer. He's making a map of where to find these creatures, and that makes it interesting. It's an interesting film. He's an absolutely interesting character because he's a magizoologist, and I know in the books, I think he's mentioned, or there's some secrecy fan theories or something about how he was there to spy on, Dumbledore sent him there to spy on MacUSA or something. But as far as I'm concerned, as a character, as a person, he's an awesome person. He's an awesome character. He absolutely loves the people he cares about. He wants them to be happy. He wants them to be just generally happy around him. And he even made a muggle friend that he eventually cared for and helped him out in the end, as is typical of the INFP personality type. And again, I want to see more of his interactions with the magical creatures, especially. Because again, as I said before, he treats them as family and friends, and he welcomes them into his home, he cares for them, he rehabilitates them. As we saw with Frank, he was trying to get to Arizona, I believe, to release him into his natural habitat, but he couldn't do that. He had to release him in New York for help. And in return, they take care of him too. So in return, they see him as family, they see him as a good person, they see him as a protector of sorts. He is their guardian, and they are his wards, his charges. So he takes very good care of these creatures, and just like he takes very good care of the people he lets into his introverted life and his introverted heart. And I imagine that opening up his heart and his world to a muggle such as Jacob wasn't an easy thing to do. It took a lot of courage and a lot of bravery and a lot of guts for that. So, that's my take on Newt Scamander. So again, thank you for listening. I want to state for the record that I am not a licensed psychologist, nor am I claiming to be one. I'm just fascinated by mood, personality, and mental disorders of the world. They're not openly discussed, but as a society, we are getting there. And I really do enjoy comic book and movie characters. So instead of sitting at home and analyzing these ladies and gents myself and racking my brain over this, I thought I'd share it with the world. Let me know if I've done an okay job, a good job, or a horrible job at this, because it's all new for me. And don't forget to share this podcast if you liked it. Again, thank you for listening to my ramblings, and tune in next time.